Hello and welcome to Loppy Loves. If you haven't been here before, my name is Lauren and on this channel I talk about my life as an immigrant living in Iceland. So today's video is a bit different. If you saw my last video or if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen that I was in London last weekend. And today I'm just going to be sharing my trip to London with you, because I do feel that part of being an immigrant in Iceland particularly does involve trips abroad, especially in the winter, because I don't want to say that life in Iceland is heavy, that's not the right wording, but it's difficult to word it, but life can get difficult here. You feel quite isolated on this island, you know, quite cut off from the rest of the world sometimes, and in the winter, yeah, it can get to you a bit. And I haven't actually left Iceland since early last July, so it's been since last summer, and I really needed this break. And it's also good to have a record of my memories for myself as well, to look back on in the future. So how this trip came about was, I think it was a few days before Queen Elizabeth passed away. I just had a really strong urge to go to London. I don't know why. I have not spent a lot of time in London in my life. I don't have family in London. I don't have friends in London. It's not somewhere that I ever need to go, and it's not somewhere I particularly ever wanted to spend a lot of time in. I would occasionally go for a day trip, but it's not somewhere that I felt the need to spend a lot of my time in. But yeah, I just had this really strong feeling that I need to be in London, and it never really went away. And in January, EasyJet had a sale, and going to Luton was the cheapest place to fly to in the sale. That's normally the place that I fly to when I'm going back to Birmingham anyway, and then I take a coach. So yeah, this was the cheapest weekend to go. It was last weekend. So I just booked the tickets, kind of on a whim. It was very spontaneous. So if you watched my last video, you will know that I was quite ill. I did have to miss the trip to Bifrost on Thursday, but I did start to feel better on Thursday afternoon, thankfully. And I wasn't fully recovered on Friday, but I was well enough to travel. And I didn't have COVID, I had done tests, I knew that I was tested negative for COVID, and I think it was the flu, and I was starting to recover, and by Saturday I was fine. So our flight, I think it was about 11:30 in the morning, so we went to the airport, we were there for a few hours, and we got our flight, and then at Luton we had to get a coach to London Victoria, and our coach driver probably wasn't the best first impression of London for us, to be honest. He was quite angry, not at us, just in general, and at one point he did stop the coach and get out to shout at a driver of the car in front of him. Don't know what happened, didn't see it, but yeah, it was kind of scary actually. And we did end up getting off the coach one stop early. It wasn't an issue because we only travelled with backpacks, we didn't have to get any luggage out of the hold, just because it just looked interesting and we wanted to explore. So we got off, instead of at Victoria Coach Station, I think it was Victoria Train Station. It was not very far between them anyway. And then the first place that we came to was a Harry Potter shop. I'm not a particularly big Harry Potter fan. I liked the books when I was a kid. But yeah, it was just quite stereotypical. That was the first place we got to, was Harry Potter shop. And then a few doors down there was, I think it was called the Buckingham Palace shop, and it just sold merchandise of the royal family. And some of the things it sold in that shop was quite expensive and like high-end stuff. It wasn't just like cheap tacky souvenirs. It was just a shop dedicated to royal family memorabilia. And it was quite nice in the shop as well. I remember it looked very fancy in there. So just the most stereotypical thing that you could come across in London, probably just Harry Potter shop and then Buckingham Palace shop straight after. And we weren't very far from Buckingham Palace, so we did go outside and take some photos, and it was actually, there was not many people outside Buckingham Palace, which surprised me because I think it's normally quite busy there. Well, I'm assuming that, maybe not. But yeah, there wasn't many people. It might have been to do with the weather, because it was raining actually when we got to London. And actually the weather was meant to be a lot worse than what it ended up being. Then we had a nice walk through a park, and we went towards the West End because we were trying to go to the British Museum before they closed, because they actually had a late night opening on that day, luckily. So glad that we did it then, because on the Sunday when we were planning to go, the queue first thing in the morning was huge, but I'll get more to that in a bit. Yeah, so we went to the British Museum, we didn't book ahead, and we got in within about 5 minutes. There was like no one there at this time of day. There was 2 hours until it closed. You do have to go through bag checks, and I got through fine. The security guard was a little bit intimidated because he opened my backpack and it was a mess because I've got clothes and everything I need for my trip in there, and we'd just come straight from the airport. But he just asked me, do you have any of this stuff? And there was a list like you'd have in the airport of like dangerous things. I said no, and he just let me in. And then my boyfriend, he's so honest. He's honest to a fault. He had a little ball, like a, what is it, an exercise, not an exercise ball, like a little massage ball for physiotherapy, because he's an athlete and at the moment he's doing some physical therapy for an injury. So we had this ball with him to help with one of his exercises, and he had the ball in his bag. One of the things on the list was sports equipment, and he was like, oh yes, I do, I have a ball. And the security guard was like, oh, can I see it? And Syrian had to go to the bottom of his bag to like, try and find where this ball was, and it took some time. And I was thinking, oh god, I hope we get in. I really hope we get into the museum now and they're not just going to kick us out. And the security guard just laughed and said, please don't play with it inside, and let us through. Thankfully. Yeah, so we got in. We didn't get to see everything, but we did see, I think it was the ancient Egyptian exhibition, Greek and Roman, I think. And then there was some ancient China exhibition that we didn't see all of it, we just saw a bit of that bit because we were both exhausted by that point and we were hungry, we'd been travelling all day. So we left the museum and we decided to walk back the way that we came, to go to a restaurant in Chinatown because we'd walked past Chinatown on the way to the museum. And ended up walking in completely the wrong direction and didn't realise for quite a while. We'd been walking for maybe like 15-20 minutes before we were like, I don't recognise anything here. We had to go back to the museum and then go down the right street to get to where we wanted to go. And it was crazy busy in Chinatown. So many people everywhere. It looked really nice, so they had all these Chinese lanterns on the street. And we were just looking for a restaurant and we came across one where the menu was out front, the food looked good, there was a lot of vegetarian options for me, the prices were reasonable, and it looked empty. It looked like there wasn't a lot of people inside from the front of the restaurant. And then the hostess came out and greeted us and said, do you want to come inside? So we followed her in. She was really nice. And then we had to go through this little part of the restaurant and then through a door to the main restaurant, which we didn't know. And it was packed full of people, not a single table available, so we had to go upstairs. The staff upstairs were not impressed. The woman downstairs, she'd been lovely. The upstairs staff, they just weren't having a fun time by the looks of it. And there was no tables for us really, but there was one table left in the corner that they seated us at. I'm happy it was by the window, we could see out and see all the lanterns. And it was in the corner, which was nice. But this table probably could have seated 10 people. It was massive. And we felt really awkward just being two of us in the corner at this massive table. Then after that, we were walking towards where we were staying that night. And we were staying in Shoreditch, which is east side of London. And we had a walk of, I don't remember, I think it was about an hour. And it was actually the direction that we had originally walked from the museum. So we got probably a third of the way to the hotel from the museum. Yeah. And then we turned back and then we had to go back on ourselves. And the shoes that I was wearing were really bad because the shoes that I wear day to day, they got a hole in the sole of one of them like the week before, and I have still been wearing them, but I knew that the weather was going to be bad in London, raining, so I didn't want to wear them to London. And yeah, the spare shoes that I had was so uncomfortable, not good walking shoes, and my feet were really hurting, and my toe, it was rubbing my toes, and yeah, with this long walk to London in agony, and it was quite late, it was dark outside, and the areas that we were walking through seemed quite dodgy. And then we got to like some massive clubbing street with like just nightclubs, people on the street just everywhere. And then we eventually got to our hotel. It was called the Shoreditch Inn. It was fine. It was 2 minutes walk from where we were going to be the next day, and it was okay. But then we got there and the receptionist said there is actually a £50 deposit. We'd already paid in advance for the hotel. There is actually a £50 deposit. And I was like, oh, are you serious? Because I didn't really have any money left in my bank account. Yeah, it was payday yesterday, but last weekend I didn't have any money left because I had a lot of things to pay out. And I was like, can you take cash? And they were like, well, we would prefer it if you paid on card. My card declined for £50, but luckily my boyfriend, his card was accepted. But yeah, the hotel itself was fine. The room was very small, but it was clean, it was comfortable, it was just what we needed for a night. And it was pleasant. The staff were lovely, there was breakfast included. I think the breakfast, we had 2 croissants, there was some jam and butter, we had a yoghurt. It came with a cold, hard-boiled egg, and then you could have tea, coffee or orange juice. And it was a pleasant stay. I would stay there again if I ever needed to be in Shoreditch again. Then the next day we were in a jewellery workshop in Shoreditch, just around the corner from the hotel. We were there, how long was that? I think it was an 8-hour workshop. Yeah, so it was like 7 hours. Yeah, with an hour lunch. So it was like a 6-hour workshop with an hour lunch. Yeah, so we were learning a new skill, both of us, because we both make jewellery. But we were learning silver casting, so it was sand casting and cuttlefish casting. We had a lot of fun on that workshop. It was a small group, there were just 6 of us and the teacher, and we had a really good day. And I'm glad that we did it. Although it was quite far from where we wanted to be in London, and because we only had a short amount of time, we did kind of, I don't want to say we regretted booking the course. We didn't regret it. We learnt a lot and we enjoyed it. We had a good time. But we wish we had more time to spend just being tourists. And after the workshop, we decided to walk back into the West End because that's where we thought we were staying that night, in a different hotel. I don't know how this happened, but I was searching for a hotel within the West End, within a radius, and I found an apartment that was listed in my search radius and said it was nearer to all the attractions in the listing, but it was in Barking, and I don't know London, so I really don't know. Somehow I thought it was in the West End. I really don't know how it happened, but basically we walked towards the West End, but because my feet were hurting so bad we tried to find a taxi rank, and we walked around. It took us 2 hours to get to this taxi rank that we were trying to find. And yeah, the taxi that we went to get in, the driver was just really angry from the second we walked in. He was clearly having a bad day. I don't know what was going on. It was not us that made him angry. He was angry from the get-go. But yeah, I said that we're going to Barking, and in my head it was the West End, and he's just like, I'm not going anywhere near Barking. I was like, oh. And he was like, I was like, okay, can you just take us to the West End then, just to the centre, and then we can find our way? And he was just like, where are you going? The West End or Barking? And we were like, you know, either. And he's like, no, they're opposite directions. Which one are you going to? And we were like, are they opposite directions? And he ended up kicking us out of the taxi. And so we were quite embarrassed, and I was shocked to find out that the hotel wasn't where I thought it was going to be, because apparently Barking was even further east than Shoreditch. And again, I really don't know how that happened. That mix-up happened, don't know how. But yeah, it was quite stressful. We just went back inside the train station that the taxi rank was next to, and just booked a new hotel next to the British Museum. It was this cheap old hotel that had bad reviews actually. And we got under the taxi. Our taxi driver that we had that time was wonderful, really, really lovely man. He was very chatty, very helpful, gave us some things to do, like tourist recommendations, and I ended up paying him double because he was so nice, that guy. And we got to our new hotel. He dropped us off not outside the hotel because of the way the road was, but just down the road from it. It was number 36, I remember. We went to number 36 on this street and it was a building that was for sale. And we thought we'd been scammed by this. But luckily it was just the wrong street. I went on Google Maps and it was actually around the corner, the hotel that we were staying at. We got there and it was very old-fashioned and it wasn't the nicest hotel, but I loved it actually. I found it really charming. It was really old-fashioned. It still had the wooden, you know, the cubby holes with like all the keys, the actual keys for each hotel room inside. And I had to fill out a form on arrival, you know, like your address, who you are and everything. In the reviews, a few people said the staff weren't very nice. The staff were wonderful. Very helpful, very lovely. Yes, I think that was, I can't remember what it's called, Gresham Hotel or something. I'll write it down anyway. But yeah, we got upstairs to our room and there was not even a bathroom in the room. It was like a sink in the corner and then a communal toilet and a communal shower for the floor. And yeah, even though it wasn't the nicest place and it was very old-fashioned and very outdated, I found it quite charming and I actually liked it there. And it was literally like just probably a 60-second walk from the British Museum around the corner, and it wasn't that expensive. I think it was £85 for the night. We were there an hour after we booked it, so for like a same day booking on a Saturday night, I don't think that was a lot for central London. And yeah, the next morning we were like, well, we're next to the British Museum, great, we can go and have a look at the exhibits that we didn't see. We got out the hotel and almost to the hotel door there was a queue of people, and at first I thought it was like tourists waiting for a bus or something. I didn't really know what was going on. We walked further down the road and realised that that was the queue to get into the British Museum. It was crazy, so we just abandoned that plan because we were not going to wait in that queue. So we went for breakfast and then we decided that I needed a new pair of shoes because my feet were in agony. And I needed a new pair of shoes anyway because the shoes that I had back here had holes in them, you know. So I found a shoe shop and we walked towards it, but it wasn't open yet, so we just went around a few places that were open while we waited. And luckily the shoe shop that we were going to was next door to a Skechers shop, and I always buy Skechers anyway because they're the most comfortable. And I got a lovely pair of shoes, and yeah, and then my feet were so much more comfortable after. Then we just went to explore a little bit and get lost. We went to M&M World and we saw this kind of exhibition. I don't even know how to describe it. It was under a roof, but it wasn't like a closed building. We could see it from the street and we walked into it. It was just an open building, you know. It was just like walls on, I think, one side and then some like columns supporting the rest of the structure. And it had like these screens on all four walls and the ceiling was kind of curved and quite high ceiling. And it had all of these like art installations, like digital art installations and animations and stuff. And it was really nice. It was really relaxing to be in there. Some of them were a little bit creepy, some of the things that were being displayed. And the thing that I liked the most, there was this like pyramid kind of effect. It was all black, and then these like little logos just made like a pyramid. It looked like a really high pyramid, but it was actually a curved ceiling, and it just looked a lot taller than it was. It's like a really nice illusion. And then there was another smaller space next to it with like a lower roof, and it was all just like the ocean, the forest. It was all just nature. And I think it was an art gallery, called Outernet. I don't know if the gallery itself was called Outernet or just the the things on the screen were by a company called Outernet, but it was closed, so we couldn't go inside. But this free exhibition thing they had outside was really nice, and yeah, we really enjoyed that. And then we went to the British Gallery and spent some time in there, which was nice, and it was free to get in again, which is always good. Very, very busy, a lot of people. And then after that we went to Trafalgar Square and sat there for a little bit and just walked down the road and went past a cavalry museum, which we weren't planning to go to, but we just accidentally walked past it. Yeah, I paid to go in. There was no one in there, it was really quiet. Didn't get any videos of it, unfortunately. But yeah, it was quite interesting actually, and we were in there for quite a bit of time. It was only a little museum. I think it was £10 each to get in. It was a bit pricey, and we were there until closing time. Or they closed while we were in there, but they let us stay to finish looking around, and they did come to tell us the gift shop is closing now if you want to buy anything. But yeah, I would recommend going there. It's not my kind of thing at all, but it was quite interesting actually. And then after that we went to the Houses of Parliament. I've never actually seen them in real life that close, I don't think. I think I've seen them from a distance, but I've never been that close to the Houses of Parliament, and it was it's amazing to see those structures in person. It's just incredible because of how intricate they are and how big and just all the details. And then after that it was time to go back to Victoria Coach Station, and we finally went to Greggs, which is the dream. It's just a chain of British bakeries that most British people love. We got the coach half an hour early back to the airport because we had a ticket where we could just change, and we had the nicest coach driver ever. He was wonderful, and yeah, so we got back to the airport and we were staying in the airport hotel for the night. This one had a bath, which my boyfriend was very happy about. And I think it was that night, it might have been the night before, that the clocks changed in the UK, which I hadn't even thought about. Yeah, in the UK there's daylight savings, but we don't have daylight savings in Iceland, and it hadn't even crossed my mind that the clocks might change when we were in the UK, and they did. And I didn't know that until we got back to Iceland and the pilot told us that the time was different. And I was like, what? Yeah, and then we had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the airport. And luckily our phones automatically changed the time. Yeah, so we got up at the right time. And then we got back to Iceland, we got back to Selfoss, and there was snow on the ground. It had been snowing in Selfoss. In London it was already spring, you know, a lot of flowers were in bloom, and yeah, snow. Return to the winter. But yeah, I had a really nice trip in London. Yeah, I don't feel the need to go back again, so I'm kind of glad that I kind of scratched that itch of going to London and got that out of the system. And yeah, one thing that I noticed was that I had a bit of culture shock, being in this small town for so many years, for like 6 years, going back to a big city. I sometimes get culture shock when I go back to my hometown because it is also a big city, but yeah, I did get culture shock going to London, and I just felt so small. Like, it's difficult to explain it. The buildings there are much bigger than we have in Iceland, but there's also just so many people, and I just felt very small and I want to say anonymous, because here you kind of always see people that you know in this town, whereas obviously I don't know anyone there. Yeah, and it was quite an interesting feeling. And then when I went back to work the next day, loads of people were asking me how my trip was, how my family were, and I'm like, I don't know. And they were like, oh, but you were seeing your family, and I was like, no, I'm not from London. And they were like, oh yeah, but we know you're not from London, but we thought you were visiting your family. And I'm like, no. Yeah, so a lot of people just assumed that I have family in London, because I'm English. So But it just occurred to me just before I started filming this video that maybe a lot of Icelanders, maybe most Icelanders, if not every Icelander, might have family or a close friend, you know, in the capital, in Reykjavik, because so much of the population is in Reykjavik. And it kind of occurred to me, I was like, maybe they just assume that I have people in the capital because everyone here has people in the capital, maybe. I don't know. That was just a thought that popped into my head that I found quite funny. And before I end this video, I just want to share what I bought in London, because a lot of people here, when they go abroad, they always take loads of suitcases to buy as much as they can, because it's cheaper abroad than buying anything in Iceland, really. Yeah, but I wasn't actually planning to buy anything because we were just travelling with backpacks, so I'm just quickly going to go through what I bought in London. So the first thing I bought before we even left the country. So I got an email when we were at the airport, basically accepting a proposal that I had for writing an article for a new magazine, a new jewellery magazine that's coming out, and I needed to write it on the plane basically because they wanted it by Sunday. So I had to buy a very overpriced notebook in the airport and a new pen, and then found out I had a pen in my bag after, so I didn't need to buy this. Yeah, but this notebook was very expensive, and I already have so many notebooks, so I don't really buy them. Yeah, but it is very pretty. I'll give it that. Yes, so I had to write that article on the plane, and I don't even know if the email went through because the editor hasn't responded yet, so I need to chase up on that actually. Yes, but I do write, yeah, I do write. I have written articles for a few places, and I used to have a blog that I would like to get running again at some point. Yeah. Writing is something I'm into, so yeah, if you ever need anything written, you know where to come. Then of course I got my shoes that I love so much. These have pink flowers. You can't really see, the light's washing out the colour unfortunately, but bright pink flowers all over them. I love them, they're so comfortable. They match my glasses that also have pink flowers. And actually these trousers also have pink flowers, so you can see what clothes I'm into. Then we have these things that I was not planning to buy. I'm kind of annoyed at myself that I fell for this. Yeah, this company has changed its name from whatever it used to be. I've bought the products before. I bought them in Birmingham and also in Budapest. I've come across them, but they were under a different name then. It's this company that has the nail file that gives your nails like really shiny finish, and then they try and sell you all of their skincare products too. They just drag you in off the street with like a free sample and give you a little pamper session, and then you feel like you can't get away because of like the hard sell. I basically bought a nail kit to get away, and although I do like the nail file, and that's one thing I regret not buying in Budapest like 6 years ago, so I'm glad I got the nail file, but I didn't need the cuticle oil and the hand lotion. And these are not things that I would ever buy because I only really buy sustainable skincare, and I'll use them, but I'm not going to buy them again. But yeah, I bought this kind of against my will. It was just to try and get away, basically. Also, with my shoes, I did get some socks, because you can upsell me anything, apparently. I always fall for the sales tactics. Yeah, it's one of my weaknesses. I think it's part of being British as well, partly. I did go to the Body Shop, and I went to the Body Shop because I was waiting to buy the shoes. We have Body Shop in Iceland. I don't know why I bought some stuff, but I bought a foundation. And I don't really wear foundation. I'm wearing it right now, but yeah, for some reason I got this. I got 2 bars of soap. I do use bar soap a lot, so I'm glad. This is Moringa. I don't know if it's going to show. Yeah. This is the scent that I used to always wear, this Body Shop Moringa body spray when I was like early 20s, and I haven't worn it in years, but it smells amazing, and I'm going to start using it again because it smells incredible. And this one, British Rose. I also like this Body Shop scent. I don't understand why it's called British Rose and not English Rose, because English Rose, I mean, we use that to describe like an English woman, a young woman. It's called an English Rose, but also the rose is the national flower of England, I believe. I don't know why it was called British Rose instead of English Rose. Yeah, I got a mini Moringa hand cream. Nothing's showing up on this camera. yeah, but the Body Shop hand creams are quite good, so I got a travel size one. And then when I got to the counter, I saw that they had a mini chamomile, what is it, cleansing butter, because the big ones were too big to bring my hand luggage. And then I saw this and I was like, oh yeah, that's really good, because I want to try this, and it's a nice little one that can fit in the hand luggage. But I actually got this for free, and also a headband to like keep my hair out of the way when I'm washing my face, because I spent enough money on the other products. And then finally we went to Covent Garden, I think. There's a little market square there. And so one thing that I like to do, I like to paint sometimes. Mostly acrylics, but sometimes watercolours. I got into watercolours a few years ago. And a few years ago I did see like these watercolour notebooks. It's like pages of paper with little watercolour sections on them that are very portable. And also metallic watercolours are something that I saw a few years ago that I've been wanting to buy both of those products but never got around to it. They actually had these watercolour papers, but they also had a metallic version, so I got 2 of these watercolour notebooks. So how it is like the paint, each of these blocks is paint, it's watercolour, but it's like a little notebook so you can take it anywhere. So I got the original version, just yeah, basic colours, 16 colours, and then 10 metallic colours, and they both came with a free water pen, which was a nice touch. So yeah, that's everything I bought in London. Wasn't planning to go shopping, but that happens. And yeah, so that was my trip to London. Sorry it's a different video from what I usually make. I will be resuming to Iceland content next week. Hopefully. I do have a video planned. I hope I get it filmed in time. And that will be about Icelandic Easter. So let me know in the comments below what you would like to know about Icelandic Easter, and I will film that for you. So have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!